That is, I don't know, what is his name? Francis.
Pepe.
No, not Pepe Kale. Oh, come on, Francis, you remember that guy?
Mbilia, whatever.
Yeah, Bilia and oh my goodness. My goodness, I forgot it.
Musica.
Oh, Vavimbe,
Is Tabule.
Franco. That's Franco. But Vavimbe, I
don't know why my thing is gone hayway again.
Yeah, again. So what you do is either switch off your and then you come again.
Okay. So I completely get out.
Restart your yes.
Okay, let me
restart your system. So that was our Kaflafta. I enjoyed that discussion. I hijacked the discussion and I enjoyed it, Nathan.
No, you didn't hijack it. Well, Francis, you'll be amazed. You see, this is why I tell people that Roger and I, our minds are the same. I'm telling you the truth. The questions you asked him are the things I had on my paper here. You see, when people think alike,
birds on the same field.
And he didn't even prepare for this. He just jumped onto it, Vasera, and he made it happen.
Well, I've been here 12 years, so what do you expect? Hello, beautiful Sarah. Hello, sister. How are you?
How are you? How is everyone? I've missed you.
Hello, we missed you too.
Yeah, and everyone is here. So we're waiting for Francis.
From where I come from, I drop him at Solwezi.
No, don't drop at Solwezi. I know me. I go straight to Kabompo.
He doesn't want to go on the same bus with me.
Why?
No, because
I don't know.
Because she lives very far. She goes very far.
Where do you go, Vasera? I thought he drops at Kasempa.
Yes, me, I proceed to Kabompo and Zambezi.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
By the way, Vasera, can you bring me the MPs in those areas? What we are going to do now is to focus in these remote. Can you believe, Roger? Kaflafta is in the copper belt, but did you hear what he described?
Kaflafta kulefa kwa fie tuombele pama kulefa kwa fie innovation. You can't have all those big companies. Find something you can bring on the table. You know? Go ahead.
Every time I go to Zambia, I go Kaflafuta. Roger knows some of the projects I'm working on, but I'm right smack in Kaflafuta, and there's a lot of potential. There's tourism potential. There's, of course, farming potential. They have a lot of, not a lot, but they have two major streams there. One of them is, there's a lot of water, in other words.
Wow.
Yes. So there are a lot of opportunities for fisheries. There are a lot of opportunities for other types of agriculture. Very, very fertile soils and very, very good people. So it's very, very disappointing because the last time I was there in May and June, that's when they were trying to just grade the road. After 5 years, they were grading the road.
Because it was election time.
It was election time. And they have engaged some Chinese to actually do a road from Kapiri all the way to connecting to the other major highway. But again, that is a project that they began, I think, too late. So there are a lot of developmental challenges there, but a lot of potential, certainly.
Okay. Welcome again to Zambia Block Talk Radio. In the last segment, only one person wanted the ticket, Nathan. So Chipahuma Mahulu, please inbox us somehow, give us your number. You are going to be the winner since you are the only one. So you've won the 500 tickets to go and listen to, what's his name?
Lumumba.
Professor Lumumba.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Mavimbe, welcome. Welcome, Mavimbe. Yeah, so we did the magic. I can testify that I'm the technician, even though I don't know anything. So it worked. You're on mute, Mavimbe. You're on mute, Mavimbe.
Never touched the headphones yet.
All right. Okay, yeah.
Wonderful.
So yeah. No, I had to change the camera anyway. So sorry. I
But,
think the other
No,
camera is
we
dodgy.
can't hear
co-host,
Roger.
what are we going to do to keep you there
I couldn't
without
hear Roger.
disappearing
I'm not
again?
getting him.
But Francis,
I don't know. My phone just kicked me out.
okay.
Now we have put.
I know what we need to invest in. You are permanent here. We are going to invest it to something. We'll talk. We'll talk. Achani Mulanda Vasera.
Maybe
She
let me
can't
go
hear you.
out. Yeah, maybe let me go out and come back.
But she's listening. I don't understand.
No, I don't think she
Oh,
can hear you.
she
Vasera,
can.
can you hear us?
No, I can't. I can't get
But how are you
Roger. Like I
answering?
say, he's in Kasempa. Like I say, he's in Kasempa.
How are you answering? How are you answering?
Valotherapy.
I like that. I like that.
We
How are
have
you
a
answering?
packed. We have a packed show today. We have a packed show. You're going to love it. Bottom of the hour, we are looking at some of the question Minister of Finance was answering. So we'll look at there. But for now, sorry, Francis, I'm going to call it gossip. This week, we need to start to transition into development. But what is full in our WhatsApp groups, in the Facebook, it is the same usual. What did Obama used to do to call them? Shining objects. You know, shining objects. We don't want to go to the meat.
Yeah.
By the way, Mavimbe, I was thinking.
You see what I was saying about Roger. It's the last 10 years, we've gone through slowly, accepting the abnormal to be the normal. So it's going to take time to change that mindset.
That's exactly Roger. He pointed about Pangava that you were alluding to Obama. Remember when Obama was saying, "Is this going to be the new normal?" When he was referring to shootings. So it's like if you are a new normal.
Yeah.
It's going to take time for us to get out of it, and
Just to add on, Bankama, it's that, and then coupled with people were oppressed for a long time. We just have a lot of material to talk about. People are excited about the corruption, the retrieving of the money, and just to see these guys who thought they were kings to be in the opposition. I mean, you can't mom people and say, let's talk about development. They want to talk about those guys who are now in the opposition. So it will take some time. And I think it has to be a deliberate thing by the administration to shift the focus now. Even us. It works well for them if there's no scrutiny, actually.
Yes.
They love it.
Yes, exactly.
And the sad thing also is what you said. Then the opposite is also happened. People now appreciate, or rather think that to be in power is to make money, is to eat. And that's the unfortunate part of that, you see. So there is quite a lot to get to just make people understand that this is really not normal.
From the discussion we are going to do on the bottom of the hour, you are going to see how much we are missing out. What is being announced, the opportunities which are opening up, we are busy chasing the shiny objects.
However, Roger, it's not chasing after shiny objects. You have to, this is one thing people have missed about HH. One of his influences is Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew is regarded as a father of Singapore. How he moved Singapore from a third world to a first world. The foundation of Singapore moving from third to first was the fight against corruption and making sure that there were no loopholes. So what we need to do, yes, we have to focus on the developmental aspects, but we cannot take our eye off the ball because if Chitika Dion Sefe, when Awasa was there, he focused for the time he was alive, he focused on that. When he died, what happened? RB came in and it was a corrupt regime for that short time that they were in there. And then the PF came in and they made it worse. The problem with all the developmental aspects we want to talk about, we cannot do them if we keep on having these gaping holes that let resource from our country leak out. So there needs to be pressure constantly on the government and all these FIC, DEC, ACC in order for them to deliver on the fight against corruption, because there is no other way we win and develop Zambia unless we fight. So that is my take.
But I don't know. You are right. It's 50-50 in my view. You know, it's 50-50.
Yes.
There should be a balance.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Yeah.
what we find which accommodates most of our times is the shiny object.
Yeah. There is a lot. I think we need a lot of structural adjustment in terms of how we view the presidency. The whole corruption, it's kind of saying we want to develop, but yet we have to depend on one good man at the top. If we have one bad man, then things go hayway. We need institutions that can stand the test of time. I think this is where we are missing it, probably, I think. But
I like that.
How we are going to change that constitution to remove some of the powers from the president, I don't know.
To Kaflafuta, you know? Yeah.
Because people, once they are in there, power becomes sweet, then they stop thinking of changing the constitution to make it much stronger. So I don't know.
And Vavimbe, that is where you and I come in. The pressure must, nifaka pressure, mdala. We have to make sure that the constitution is changed for the future of Zambia. We cannot allow power to be centered in one institution or one branch of government. No, and it doesn't change unless we keep on putting pressure. That's why I love it, Roger.
The other problem also, it's a distribution of income also welcome where power is not distributed across the country. So by constitution to fight all the time. And the reason they contrast. Imagine if we were people in Kasempa were as powerful, half powerful as Kasempa, as Lusaka. They'll give them a middle finger. But
Roger, just to that point, and this is the reason why you should never tell the people to keep quiet. You just said it right. You said power is centered Lusaka, right? So what we're seeing now is people taking part in the governance of the country. Putting pressure, making sure when something happens, they say we are seeing this. Where is the action? That's what we need. It works in our favor as citizens of the country. So you will see going forward that even simple things like the minister coming out and being below par, it will never happen again. Look at how people spoke. So I'm sure such things are going to be corrected. You don't want an administration that comes in and there are no checks and balances. The people are not voicing out because they're scared. And if you continue that, it leads to having power being centered in Lusaka and just the few.
Okay. Well said. Initially, Tarika.
Development apapene.
Okay.
Free education apapene.
Okay.
Mwakosa Barocha. Kama mulishani nari mfuluka bade.
Ndife wino na nani mifuluka na remu na kwati na mumfit or something.
Mujito urongo tu basara mwakosa ko.
Makambo na nene kaleta kwa matumbo.
What about never bakombe mdingai? Bakombe mdingai bakombe.
Shero akazonzo.
Reverend mulishani.
So you just spent all your time greeting people. I move on.
No, I have to greet my people. I've missed them. So if the greeting is enough contribution, I'm also happy. Yeah. So, but anyway, what I'm hearing from the blogosphere is two things, maybe several. The government that is being put under pressure through a lot of talking. In the long term, it functions well. But it is only when they are able to manage and hear and sift through the things that are being said. And when they sift through, they create a structure and the system to manage expectations. I have had some wild expectations, and I have just created a video to put out a comment on that. Maybe you can see it later. It's 9 minutes long. So what I feel personally is simple. People need to educate themselves about the enterprise of government. The enterprise of government is a bureaucracy. You have to set up the bureaucracy properly so that it can deliver to the expectations of both the stated goals and the expectations of the people. This thing of trying to be in a hurry to cover everything, that's why you are seeing government make mistakes. You know, the minister couldn't even read a speech because it's not that the PF permanent secretaries wrote the bad speech for her. It's just that she didn't sit long enough to practice it. It is your first time. You go and practice. Practice makes permanent. It doesn't make perfect. So when you practice, you go and represent yourself better. She didn't practice. So that is the problem that you have. It's a teething problem for the new people. They've never served in those roles. They don't fully understand how the bureaucracy works. They have to study. They have to understand it. So there is no option. There is no way they are going to do anything we want just because we say it, because government doesn't work like that. Government is a bureaucracy. It's deliberately slow. So you have to set up the processes nicely. And let me give you a practical example. They have taken over government. I'm a financial guy. They have taken over government in the third quarter of the year. The budget that the ministries were working under was set up by the previous government. They haven't even started to organize the finances properly, see where the money is going to come from. What you start demanding free education instantly. President is not a miracle worker. He's a guy sitting on top of the bureaucracy. So what I just want to urge my people in the blog sphere, yes, the pressure is useful, but tame your expectations, because these people, the more noise they are hearing, they can easily become a funny government that is only catering to the noise.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what they need to do is to set up the process properly, and also make sure that Karusha Bulalia aletera panamba 10. Ukukugo kipo kukulie for chavala. So the team, the winning team, needs to complete from cabinet to controlling officers to ambassadors. For example, if the purpose of the government, they say now diplomacy is going to be built on economics. So you have to put people with economic technical know-how in critical governments where you can raise some of the money to help your own people. Let me just throw out a name. Then why don't we have Chibamba Kanyama as a new ambassador here in Washington? Because Chibamba Kanyama, I've worked at IMF. Chibamba Kanyama knows something about economics. Chibamba Kanyama was not a loud political cadre. But that's what you need in diplomacy, are people who have the capacity to stay quiet, not loud mouths like a Jones Kasonso. I can go in there and tear up everything.
Vasera, what do you think about, before we start, we have 10 minutes for chit chat. I've been doing this with Nathan forever. 13 years, I don't know how many, if I was to be rich, we have been rich by now. And Nathan knows my position about the Lusaka stories. They deprive me of development, in my view, of the Mpolokoso and everywhere, because of my experience here in diaspora. I hear very, very little about Ottawa, where I am here. Why? Because all their resources they have, very cool. Number Kurusaka, because we depend on everything, passport, Kabia Kurusaka. Registration, Kabia Kurusaka. Ichi, Kabia Kurusaka. And hence, even all our stories are Lusaka based. Oh my God, my heart bleeds. My heart bleeds. Vaser, your take on the Akasaka ka, Karibu Sakasaka, look what Akasaka Kandalam. I've got Akasaka Kandalam. Oh, I didn't put it there. What is your take? If 63 million can be found with one individual, how much money is Avena Lungu hiding, which we don't know about?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Actually, you know, it's so shocking how people have even started, like, you know, acknowledging, like, emeralds, auctioning, whatever. You know, they are justifying having that money in their house.
Don't even justify it anyway.
No, I'm not, Roger. I'm just saying it's so shocking that people are doing that. But you know, the thing is, these people, they are just corrupt, and we know they stole. That's much we know. But what I can say is that, like the other speaker said that the president's power can be reduced, whatever. You know, when you have bad seed, even if the president's power are reduced, if it's a bad seed in there, it will still do it because it's everyone. It starts from the bottom. Look, when you go to NRCs, when you go to get your passport, there is corruption which goes. As the mindset of the people of Zambia should just start changing. Otherwise, we are not going to make it. If we don't change from the grassroots, even if we had a good president, like the president
yeah, you are going to like what Msokotwane was saying. If you listened, who listened to that interview, Francis? The entire interview, Diamond. It says one of the things they are doing is umuntu nganakupera fiance. If you say NRC, nakuletera fiance, there will be either it is hours or nakupera. In 2 days, a person should have a NRC. Ngatakwete explanations will be required, or people will be fired.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, that we need to have a set of mindset changed, you know, otherwise we're not going to make it.
Yeah, but Sarah, that, and I so agree with you, the change of mindset, but the change of mindset only changes with consequences. Again, I give you Singapore as an example. They made corruption, whether by public officers or by people of the public themselves, punishable with very, very high fines and prison sentences. That's even if umuntu I am kupoka NRC and they say, naka drink, you know, let's hurry this up. That in and of itself should be punishable by law because that is corruption. Zambia does not just have a corruption problem. It has a culture of corruption. And the way that you change a culture of corruption is to make sure that you force people to say, listen, there are consequences for your corruption, and regardless of how small it is. Me, I'm waiting for when I go back to Zambia, maybe a police officer stops me at the roadblock and asks me for money.
I like what Bali is saying. I agree with Akamba. I like what Bali is saying. Bali has been saying the issue of corruption is going to create courts that will run speedy processes for corruption cases. They should do the same for even simple corruption, like the one that has been mentioned here, somebody trying to bribe you. Look, the Middle East did not arrive at that discipline overnight. When the population sees that, that is a lesson. Corruption, Zambia, unless some people, some culprits are used as examples. Otherwise, talk is cheap. We want to see big shots who think they cannot be punished, save jail sentences. That will send a statement to a simple marketeer out there. Look at Middle East; they have public lashing. They even put a time, 15 hours. We are caning Francis Alais. The doctor is there about to examine. You are good for being caned. When the neighbors see that, they won't do that. Mamon. So that kind of discipline is what we need in Zambia. Certain people, not only but let them serve some jail time. That will send some
today how have they sorted out corruption?
Yeah, I think, Roger.
I'll bring you in, don't worry. How have these Western world countries sorted out corruption, Vadim?
I don't think they've sorted out corruption. Corruption is always there. You're going to get it. I mean, in most countries like here in the UK, I think where the corruption most happen is in the local government. But the reason why probably we don't see it is because when that happens, I don't see medicine running out in hospital.
Exactly.
So ours is really grand corruption.
Right.
But I also would like to say, I mean, culture is an issue from the way we've come. But I would also want to say, I think the investigations and the whole investigation processes up to conviction needs to be looked at. I don't know whether we have trained people. I mean, Wakasonso can help me with that kind of thing, forensic accountants, probably. I don't know how that works, because it seems to me those guys investigating, they are not up to the job. Then the other thing is, I'm just surprised why in a country today we've got paper trail, paper systems all along, people getting permission by phone. It's just, I don't know. But again, that comes down to culture. It has to change.
Yeah.
But Roger, on a point, Malanga, I just want to add something to it. Decentralizing the system is what is going to stop corruption to Zambia. We start with that. Instead of Leon say when somebody you go to Lusaka and just
now you are talking, Francis.
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I just received the call. And making sure that the one-on-one interactions are lessened. Look at here. When I'm applying for something, say immigration, they give me an address. Houston. I'll fill in the form, or my lawyer will fill in the form. Tuatuma Houston. When I speak to somebody, I call there to find out if my papers are there. I'm not going to speak to them again. Leiloni John, Mailoni James, let me look at your case. They just look at your case. There's no one-on-one interaction. The system works like that. When you centralize everything, everybody has to go to Lusaka. It's always, you have to meet an officer and you know them. Corruption will never end. Make it easy for anyone uli kumazabuka to fill in a form on the internet, because I left for something Lusaka, and wait. They send a response to say, we've received your application, we've given you 7 days, we'll respond. When you start cutting down some of those things, corruption will lessen. It can never end, but it will lessen. I think that's where the problem is, because there's too much one-on-one meeting, the face-to-face meetings. It's easy to oil something like that.
Thank you. That is my pastor.
I'll tell you just let me add one thing.
Let me acknowledge my pastor here, my reverend. All the way, I think from Kasama, Pastor Chayana Nkonde. We were together at Youth Fellowship in St. Margaret's. Thank you, Pastor Nkonde, and regards to the family. Go ahead.
What you've said, Francis, it's exactly. I mean, that's the way you have to do it. But it takes political commitment. I'll tell you one story. I did work in Rwanda, Kigali. One time, I was part of the ones that were doing the lands system, but I was on the knowledge management side. So the story is, after the unfortunate situation in Rwanda, since then, before that, land was never gazetted. And that was one of the problems of the whole issue. So what they did was to regularize that land issue. They needed systems. Luckily, the British came in, part of the EU and the Canadian and others came in, brought in some experts to do that. They flew planes around Rwanda to get high resolution photos, did the whole demarcating, and created a system, open source system. You can get a title deed in your village. You don't need to travel. That system can talk in can talk in French, can talk in English, and Kinyarwanda. It was built like, and then when I went there, because I used to go there to work there, these guys were like, "Oh, you've just come. Your cousins from Zambia were here." I said, "Oh, okay." They came to see how we are doing. I said, "Oh, all right." Then I said, "Oh, by the way, we are surprised because 2 years ago another group came to see what we were doing." So that's the way it is. Probably in Zambia, there is also a deliberate thing to make systems, difficult, bad, because wherever you streamline processes, you are reducing the surface for corruption.
Yes.
So there could be that going on as well. So we need to just try to sort out that. And I mean, I'm happy the new government might have a different view on that and giving that direction that we need systems that can stand, the test of time and be able to be responsive to what the citizens want.
Very quickly, Roger, here. Everybody listening, we've already given out 1 ticket in our first segment. Keep like our Facebook page, Zambia Blog Talk Radio. Keep commenting. Those in Zambia, you stand a chance of winning a ticket for 500 kwacha to attend Professor Lumumba speech at Eden University. I know you want to switch topics here, Roger. I think one of the important
Mr.
things
Queen, I'll be sending you the link. Good from Zambia, you want to be part of the show.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So what we need to understand here is that it's very crucial how a leader steps into office and the tone that you bring when you step into office. Okay? Somebody stepped into office and made a statement and said, I'm signing this constitution with my eyes closed. You all remember that? Then somebody steps into office and he appoints a prison commissioner because he conducted himself professionally when he was in detention. Dr. Kasonso, tell me this man is not sending a message or setting a tone on what type of leadership he's bringing to the table. So the leader sets the tone. And I was told that immediately the government changed, the bus stations, the markets, everything went quiet. Does that remind you of something, Cambo, when the government changed in the United States? Ichalo chali talalaba bimbe when the government changed here. Because wale pange chongo bamufunyapo. The leader sets the tone. I believe Bali is setting a tone just by some of the decisions and things that he is doing. It's going to take time, but he has set a tone.
Yeah. Can I say something briefly?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing is we are talking about, okay, like I said, people's mindset to be changed, but also the institutions that look at corruption, the SEC, the Anti-Corruption Commission. What do they do? In your lifetime, Roger, or anyone here, have you ever seen where they have investigated and they have put somebody in jail properly? That's my question.
Yeah. Can I answer that quickly?
That's a Lusaka problem, I'm telling you.
Yes. Here is, and I think it's Wavimbe or Francis who talked about the strengthening of institutions. If you listen to the FIC Director General, what she was saying was that the cases, for example, that are taken for prosecution, ACC, DEC, and FIC, they recommend cases to the Director of Public Prosecutions. The Director of Public Prosecutions is the one who is empowered and will assign prosecutors to that particular case so that these cases are prosecuted. So there's a breakdown in the system where, in fact, the FIC Director General is very clear. We do not recommend to the Director of Public Prosecution any cases we think are not winnable. So when we are taking a case there, we have gathered the evidence. Now, law enforcement is also going to investigate, but for them, on their part, they are sure this is a winnable case. So the situation that we have been having, Zambia, all the cases recommended are sitting at the desk of the Director of Public Prosecution. Because of political pressure, they could not take cases to court. That is where everything needs to change. Like, all these political appointees have to be held to a higher constitutional standard, and that if they do not prosecute cases that have been recommended to them, they too should be charged.
The starting point, I think, wonse umrandiri hapa kufunya number one amaka Lusaka. Number one, if Bali is going to deliver anything to Zambia, is to allow power to go where it belongs, like he says, to the people. If he remains after 5 years, 10 years, he leaves and he leaves power in Lusaka, this corruption will always be there. Typical example I give is, again, we have a passport. Umuntu afume kukasama aya ku Lusaka. wakuzambezi aya ku Lusaka for passport wakuchipata aya ku Lusaka. Guess who is processing muntu umo? Ni demand and supply bani. Ishtanshi kwete. Ukweteko kwa high offering hapa, unarapera pa. So the system itself encourages corruption. The system itself, katusha wasiranda hapa. Wakombe. You don't need to see the person who is dealing with your papers. Ngani kuna kukanada chabada west, takwaba na phone ya tuwabutumina kwa ku immigration. Takwaba. If paper was kuingira fi muntu wenekene fiaya, the next time ngabarefo kukwipusha bakutumina nkaratati or ABCD, you didn't answer. Takwaba kulanda nabo.
Roger, let me also share some thoughts. Based on things.
Okay, make it short, Minsho. That way we can start now the budget speech because you are going to like it. I had you in mind, so go ahead.
Bachilanda ka point ako to recognize but na kuno kwina kufyalu fya basungu. Corruption is not entirely eradicated. And then bakombe abalumbi nabo bachisalanda kwebati. I was just summarize the way I heard it. We are a very corrupt people, Benazam. We think that corruption is a legitimate way to get ahead. When people recognize that in human nature, one of the things that you do is to set up controls so that human nature is termed. That's why Bankama's point about setting a tone. In accounting, we call that the control environment. It's the tone that is set up by leadership that sends a message across the system. We saw this under Levi Mwanawas. We didn't say he eradicated corruption, but he had his own mistakes, but he set the correct tone when it comes to the idea of corruption. But Roger, you have mentioned also a very critical issue on the decentralization of government. The new Dawn government has allocated money to each constituency. They want the decisions for economic development to be decided at constituency level. The first thing in the decentralization of power is money, because money speaks a language that all regions understand. So once you send money there, people set up their systems, you begin to derive and generate economic activity in those regions. And the benefit has a multiplier effect on everyone else. So in summary, the control environment is what the president's tone is towards this aspect or the issue of corruption. We would not become a corruption-free society because it's part of human nature, but we can reduce it to the levels where it is not working against the public good.
I agree. I mean, no corruption here again. It's not dependent on who is prime minister. It's not dependent on who is the president. The controls are just there. Even the prime minister, so system it doesn't matter who is president. Trump. Corruption. So but the new government is bringing opportunities. Let's not be buried in this corruption thing. You have to hear what Oh, by the way, on the issue of corruption, I don't know whether this report is true or not, but we are getting reports from Lusaka. Number one, Bari only wants very few people to travel to the United Nations. Number two, I don't know, don't quote me, but I was given this information. I was given this information that there were some advanced people who were called back to Zambia. They just arrived in Kenya. bound for New York, United Nations trip. So Bali, I hear he got wind of it. Maybe people are just trying to make him look good. I don't know. Is he capable of doing this? I think so. But he has told some people to come back because
the Minister of Foreign Affairs is hinting at a smaller delegation. I think he himself will not even be part of the delegation, if I'm not mistaken, but Mr. Msokotwane will be. So it looks like it's going to be a very small team that he brings with him.
Exactly. So they've sorted out who should, and that's the beginning. Nathan was talking about tone. That's the beginning of the end of corruption. If he sets the example that he is going commercial plane, Alan in a commercial plane, who are you when minister to you in a kind of film business class? You know, if you hear what he's saying is, each time you do these things, you've taken away a pencil from a student. You begin to understand this is a guy, I think, who understands the effect of one action, how he affects people. Number our weekend drama mind our vena lungwava. Baka pila fe kumone mshishoko bakayo. Atushina mpisa baka pila fe kumone mshi. Anyway, I didn't say that. So our government, as you can see from my here, 3 million tons of copper production. Today it is only 750. It is only 750 because of taxes, this story, that story. The miners don't want to bring in new investment. So this government, when you hear, is saying, we are not going to fail. In the next 10 years, we are going to increase production to 3 million tons. These big brains here, what will that mean for jobs? For development for Zambia, for money, for healthcare, fiancé, what is it going to mean? That is going to be our discussion. Let me begin with education. Like we promised, people who are coming here, please do any research you want to do. If it is education, we come and table it. We know. By the way, before I digress, Wavimbe, I was thinking about the example you gave us last week of having a central computer database which everyone can tap in according to their need, what they want. So I look at the diaspora, among Americans, they want their own database. Among British, you want your own database. South Africa, you own things which don't make any sense. And guess what? These are not people in Lusaka. These are people in diaspora. So let's learn something. Maybe that will be the first start. America, and then the database does the selection. I was thinking about that, Wabimbe. It was a powerful discussion. So on education, what is the budget saying? Because when the budget says something, a real deal. Francis. So now on education, what is the budget of these people saying? Listen to this.
Primary schools throughout the country, the teachers are very few. In the constituents that I represent, from grade 1 to grade 7, and I've said this over and over, if you're lucky, 2-3 teachers. Meantime, when I was a primary school child myself, there were some schools you're having 6 teachers. Today, 60 years, 50 something years later, 3 teachers. So this is where we should be focusing our money. And as we reduce from the budget, this is where we should make sure that we've got teachers, we should make sure that we have teaching aids, we should make sure that we spend money on water, we should make sure that we spend money on the desks of the children. So financial discipline simply means spending money on things that matter to the ordinary person. Not spending money on things that please us here in ministry. Because it's very easy. I've seen in the past, a ministry can spend 60,000, 70,000, 100,000 on a seminar. but 60, 70,000 kwacha in the rural areas, it can do a lot.
Absolutely.
It can do a lot.
I see you were listening, Francis. Very attentively. Everyone was listening. To a second. First, think about this. How do you have 2 teachers at a school? What does that even mean?
I think this is he's said. I like the direction he wants to point us to, but to me his statement was vague. It lacked details. He's speaking in general terms. We should spend money on teachers. We've never had an issue of teachers. There are a lot of teachers who have finished their courses. They're not employed by the government. So is he acknowledging that too? To me, what improves the education is the curriculum itself. It should be revised. That thing of Tulimu grade 3, but we are learning this is Mulenga. Mulenga is a boy. It's a Western guy. That's the reason why we have all these in the Western world teenagers doing science projects, discovering stuff. But look at our youth; they can't.
I will stay with you. I will stay with you, Bakombe. I will stay with you because you are digressing. I think. Hold on. Let me stay with Bakombe. Let me hear from Bakombe. We are talking about 2, 3 teachers. Anyway, in that interview, if you listen to, I couldn't bring the whole thing. Of course, you know that it is a budget interview, so the details will be in the pudding when he presents the budget. But he's saying the 50,000 or so teachers who are trained will be hired. My question to you was, before we go even to the curriculum, Vaviriama teachers per school.
Well, that's sad. That is sad. It's an exception. And if that is the situation in a particular area, that's very unfortunate. But I'm looking at education as a whole. How do we improve?
Yes.
How do we improve education? Because most of the wastage is done by government, like he's saying, seminars, but most of the money is held by the big guys in government. The cars they have, for instance, how many cars does an MP have? They have a car for the family, a car for parliament, and the 2 cars as a minister. All that is wastage, right? So if he's going, that's the reason why I think some of these statements that they should be followed by details, proper explanation of things. You can't just throw things in the air. Every government or administration that has come has said these things. So I expect him to be more detailed. When they say we are going to improve education, how are you going to improve education? I want to hear. I like the whys. I'm a detail. For me, I love strategy. Okay, I don't and this is the reason why when I look at the UPND today, they might face a problem because they overpromised and they are lacking now on details on how to deliver. You can't just come and say we improve education. How? I want to hear how you will.
No, but Francis, I thought he mentioned these are the points I wrote when he was talking. In that, I wrote lack of teachers, water. He mentioned water, which I put stroke sanitation, and furniture, which includes a lot of things. Those are the things that I picked up from what he was saying. So we've all been through school here. Those are very key issues. You remember when the bathroom or restroom or the school bathroom is not working, you remember what used to happen. The system will get clogged and all that. So when he talks about water, that in itself, the water covers a lot of things. It doesn't just relate to sanitation. It will help with the cleanliness of the surroundings, of the environment in which the kids are learning. Water itself is just a big item on itself. We can break it down into a lot of things. Furniture.
So is it one of the major things why we're lagging in education? I just want to know.
Yes, yes, of course.
Because he can. Of course, we are not supposed when we talk education. Let's not just zero in on 2 examples of 3 schools that face this. Overall, why are we failing to perform? This is what we should look at. Because if
okay,
trust me, you're going to find
why are we failing to perform?
you can say water, some people can say teachers. But as a government, this is the macro thing, right? Run by the
More than
government.
10 minutes, Makombe. More than 10 minutes. Guys, keep your comments to 1 minute because we have 4 more of such to unbundle. But the match one more yaimbi twachirandala ba ukafulafuta ba MP. Baticha balala munganda inga imo kafulafuta. Kafulafuta mundola. Apa pandola panampeshu. Apa pandola.
So
munganda imo baticha.
So that's affecting the whole country. Now look where the whole country.
Let's answer Bakumbe on one critical issue. When the Minister of Finance is mentioning about personnel, he is saying there is going to be money in the budget for recruitment of new teachers. That's a bonus for creation of employment. That's one. When he's saying,
yes,
yeah, when he's saying he's talking about the infrastructure and the furniture within the learning environment. It means that in his budget there's going to be money for desks and the supplies that the kids use in school. When he's talking about the water that they mentioned, he's saying in his budget there is money for sanitation and the general health of the students. So those are details. Yeah. Those are details. So you're going to find that money in his budget, Bakom. You're going to find the money for those things in his budget. And even if it's his first budget, in his first year, if he only does those 3 things, on top of the fact that the kids will show up in class without paying money, that is a huge change for the fortunes of Zambia in the field of education. That's what we're talking about when we speak of process management. You ping certain issues, and then you fund them, and then you set them in motion, and the people will see the change. The new Dawn government didn't overpromise. But it's a fair understanding of what Kateka was and the Ninfumu Yavalanda, Kuya kwa conditions yavo.
I disagree, so I totally disagree.
We can employ my teachers and fund the little things that go on around the process of learning for the kids. That's the way I understood him.
Yeah, but I disagree. Let's understand policy here. Let's not because correct.
Go ahead.
One of the things is I think Wakasonso is right. I think and Baroja is right. I think the proof will be in the pudding. We have to look at the budget that he presents. But for me, we do not have a teacher shortage in Zambia because we have a lot of trained teachers right now that are unemployed. I see the problem in 2 ways. Number one, we have a lot of ghost worker teachers. Okay, they are estimating about 3,000 teachers are ghost workers. So they need to get to clean up their own system, their education system. Then secondly, we need to incentivize teachers to teach in rural areas. And here's what I mean. If we say to teachers, listen, because government will offer to say, go to Kafulafuta, right? But then the teacher will ask and say, is there a house for me? No, there's no house. But how do you expect me to go and live there and move my family? Secondly, what is in it for me apart from me getting a salary? How does this set me up for life? So what if we said, listen, you teach in Kafulafuta for 5 years and we'll give you 2 hectares of land, titles and everything as an interim benefit, right? We need to incentivize teachers to, and even nurses and doctors to go to these rural areas to actually take services to these areas. These are some of the innovations I'm looking for. Like people, there is work to be done, but to be honest with you, if you are sending me to Kafulafuta even to open a church, I have to ask the 2 or 3 questions. I'm like, hey, it's not an easy life. But if I go and commit my life there for 5 years, I take my family and move them there for 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, whether I decide to carry on as a teacher or not, my family can benefit with 2 hectares, 3 hectares of land as an incentive. Then I will do that. And I will be there for the long term.
Again, but I tell that we are putting more money. I mean, you are not expecting only 1 hour. I don't know specific, but I tell that we are putting more money in education. Babimbe, I'm coming to
Correct,
you.
but
now.
I wanted also to hear him say the curriculum can be changed.
He didn't. I listened to the entire interview.
No, he's representing the government there. He's representing the government.
Yeah.
So he can go. He understands Bali's policy on education. And this is the point that our ministers miss a lot to Zambia. You have to understand, like Vankamaba Chilanda, the leader sets the tone. You have to understand where the president stands on issues if you're a minister or a leader in the party. So that when you go out there, you're representing also the views of the president. You can't just say this is not
Diamond. Trust me. He also mentions there is 50,000. 50,000 teachers. He says we are going to employ most of them. So about most of them employ. Most of them employ. That means more of activity area. But let's go to the next one. Increasing of copper production. We are currently at 750 Babimbe. 750. Shishibenga nindufya nyama ntwene kene, but
750,000 tons.
Yeah, 750,000 tons.
No, is it 750? Oh no, 750 tons. No,
750,000
tons. Tons.
Of
yes.
what?
I think it's
of copper. Copper production.
Okay.
Yeah, but government is determined to increase to 3 million. 3 million. Bakombe mumfikishe. Shefara mumbele futi. Musa mkutalika. Ndefara mumfikishe bakombe.
It's easy to throw figures. I love, throw. I
love you. Let's listen.
The government right on
He's talking from. He's not talking from without. Because he raised copper production during his.
Okay, let's listen. Listen to the clip. Don't freak Shabonse. Bavimbe will start us on this one. Will start us. In every equation, in the answer, in the form of opportunity, never let them live ku Zambia ku kwala wama. Listen to this.
We are going to push very hard so that in the next 10 years, copper production rises from less than 1 million tons today to 3 million tons. Yeah. We are going to push that very hard.
Right.
You can imagine the number of jobs that will come out of that. Direct jobs in the mines, service providers, electricity, water, drivers, mechanics, electricians, like those days, good old days.
Yes.
So that will happen. But that only happens if you allow copper production to increase, because how can this be hired on existing production levels?
Right.
It can't happen.
Babimbe.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Again, well, I know Bakombe details, but what I'm getting at is yes, when you have a thriving mining sector like we had in the CCM, the whole community benefits.
Yes.
There are these spill-offs. So I think it's coming from there. But then the question is, how do we increase the copper production? He's talked about the benefits, but we need to know how we're going to do that. Of course, there are debates that have been going on. I'm not an economist, so I'm not a mining engineer, but what we hear is the unstable policy state of the mining sector in Zambia. That has been a problem. I think the way also to look at the old mines are old. They need a lot of investment to get the copper out. So I think they also need to be looking at new areas, mining areas. So it's up to the policy how they'll come about that one. So yeah, I think that's doable, but he's talked mostly the benefit, as I say. But if it's done, which is in a period of 10 years, yeah, things will be fine.
One of the examples it gives in the entire listen to it. Those who are followers, Nathan will be announcing another ticket here. So if you want a ticket to go and see Professor Lumumba, please type and say, I want a ticket to go see Professor Lumumba. Babimbe, he gave an example in the entire, look for this Diamond TV on Facebook, listen to it. He gave an example of Congo. We were beating Congo, but because Congo has stabilized its tax regime, now they are producing more than us. They are producing more than us. But
Roger, and in fact, this is the second interview he's giving, because the first one was with ZNBC with Gervasio Zulu. And in that interview, one of the things that he said was to kind of not just regulate, but make regular the tax policy and mining policy that the government has to instill investor confidence. He said, listen, and it was very practical. People who invest are in it for the money. So we cannot say that when you invest, you cannot take away your profits. What we are trying to now do is say to them, please, you can only take out so much, and so much has to be reinvested. We have to put policy in place to say, if you're coming to set up a mine here, so much percentage of the jobs have to be held by Zambians, and Zambians only for these kinds of jobs. And so he was talking about, in comparison to Congo, and them regularizing, if that's a word, or normalizing their tax regime has actually helped them increase copper production. And so those are some of the hows. How do we do it? He also talked about new exploration of different types of, in different areas of the country for mining, etc., etc. So, and like I said, he has a track record of actually increasing copper production because of just having a good tax regime, which was destroyed, of course. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because you see, when I listened to that, this is what I was thinking. And like, the thing is, you need to identify what led to the copper production going down. Of course, it's got to do with governance issues, policies, a lot of disputes. Which, those are the things I'm talking about. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be a Christian, Roger. I'm trying to be a Christian for once, because at times people tell me I don't sound like a pastor, like a so-and-so when I'm talking. So those are some of the things. Some of us just shoot. You know, people from Mufrida, we don't care. We just shoot.
They expect you to be punctuating your statements with amen. I think that's how they
yeah. Hallelujah.
How does the Bible sound?
You read the Bible and see the way Jesus used to talk. Yeah, like they say. So you see, one thing is this. Did you notice something there? You could tell that Frank Mutubira
good for noticing that.
He talked about job creation, and this is the expression I want to pick on, and then I'll let another person speak. He made this expression Bakasonso, and he pointed his hand to Mutubira and he said, like the good old days. You see, when the mines thrive, it's a ripple effect, like Babimbe said. Those of us who grew up on the mines, we know this. He talked about job creation, service providers, and all those people, okay? And he gave a time frame of within 10 years. It's not going to happen next week. I'm sure they are having a lot of discussions. And the mine owners are negotiating for tax regimes and all these things and all that stuff. I think that's what I heard from that statement.
Again, before we go into the deep down the details, therefore I must make of here Nathan has touched on it here. I'm a byproducts Bakasonso. If we are going to move from 750, less than $1 million today, to 3 million, what are we talking about? Economic activity, Muchalo. Without the details, was to the fire. What does that really mean?
You know,
these guys, yeah.
You know, Roger, the first question we have to ask ourselves is what the minister talking about, in fact, doable? And the way to answer that question is to remember the old song when we were growing up. Mwechiribwe chakale, ichiribwe chakope, ichiribwe icho tuliako na bazaire. Chabafe mu neighborhood, chabafe chimochine chiribwe chakale, kuloko kubalemba kopa bazambi. So these guys have figured out that bakongo baleri yako sana kuli mwechiribwe. So nafo bene kuti twaingira mo muchiribwe mulia twaliamo. That's what their thinking is too. They are looking at the mines. Recently by IMF and by World Bank, what is that? Zambia and Congo external equated 27 billion. Part of Shrian Congo, niba mines ya Muzambia, Congo la Shrian Dalama, but Tabach invest. So the new government's policy is to unleash that investment into the copper production. And we know how it was. Na ku Africa Cup finals to Alefika, ni copper production yali high. So there is going to be a domino effect in the economy. Iya kwa bati na imomwe bali kuma diaspora kuno kwabafyo kukamayanda okuwekera kunganda because of mwechiribwe chakale chachi copper chachininga twaliamo na ifo yo ne 3 million tons balefu abamusokotwani. We will increase exports. We will have an increase in reserves. We will be able to pay off debt with the help. So what the government is simply trying to say to the copper mining houses is help us a little bit more, help us get more out of what we already have. So it's doable and it's going to be incredible. And then the final thing, they are talking about the value chains. Elongating the value chains rather than mwaimba copper mwabula ile inekwa pafima truck inefima ship mwamkushtisha. Try to start creating some of the copper products within the country so that you increase the number of people participating in the value chain, therefore feeding their families from the value chain. So if you do that in a perfect environment, that little piece of our country called Zambia is going to be a paradise. We need more soldiers employed so that they can guard the copper and the people. We will need everything
more
will
police,
have to increase
more
by 3
nurses.
times. Everything will increase by 3 times. So that is how you can take a huge chunk of the 18 million people participating gainfully in their employment. And this must be supported. And even checking on their plans. How far have we gone now? No, they said this. And that is where the pressure that Bakombe na Balombia Batilafa Reverend. Eyoko ilefo kuibika ni kuli pressure. Kuli implementation ya kuimba 3 million tons every year. Because that involves my investors, that involves employing people, that involves making larger the value chain of our productive capacity and our means to get involved in that. Tulia kuilibwe limori nena ba Congo. Bila ni kopa ni region imo ine kopa ya ba kukulu Bombashi. Taya ba kula Kinshasa. So uko bale imbia ni kuno mpepi na kumushimwe so. Na ifobe na mula mchilibo kutu ayari yamo sana. That is what I think that's what the minister was saying.
So if I can say something by Roger, I know on that. I like the direction. I like the direction.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like what the minister is saying, though. I love the direction, but I would love to hear the details again. But here's why. Here's why I say that. Yeah. Let's not make a mistake. But PF Uchaling that very astray. Everybody was cheering for them. Let's not make a mistake over here. You said it, Roger, in the beginning. Let's not fall for shining objects. When they give us a direction, let's love it, but demand the process. Let's hear how you intend to do things, because that's the 12 wants some cheerleaders. I'm telling you, the government will notice that. In 10 years, Mukala and Atawa, we were excited the first thing.
Okay.
Mafriza at a critical hour.
All right. I think I like the direction. I like what they're saying. I need more details. To me, I think failure of running the mines begins with contracting. When you contract with all these investors that come in. I'm of the idea that the government should have majority share but less than 50%. And here's why. If there are so many stakeholders in the running of the mines, it will bring oversight. If you have just the government having the majority, maybe 70%, that's when we have wastage, that's when we have corruption, and that's when you have so many things. It's very easy for a leader now to start using the mines to run things. So we need participation. We need companies contracting with the mines when the investors come in. Small businesses. I love the idea that validates small businesses, small and medium businesses. I want to see people like me with a small company, Copper Belt. I also get a tender mine because I also employ people.
If you believe
that's what we need.
So 3 million.
Success will begin with how they contract. How they contract with the investors and these people they intend to bring in. If you're going to have the government have the majority, over 50% will fail again. So for me, I love it, but I would like to see the government have less than 50%. Why less than 50%? Because then we can have a situation where the government can suggest something, and if they go and sit, people can vote the government wrong.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah. Okay, vakasonso bachevati imweve nevakombe navalumbira pali increase ya production apa epo mfire mukose ama points muleke ayo.
Correct.
Twira chitafenga kutwa bukolu chelo at mail banda nase nakasaka kandalama energy kwa ya kwila ili ashiri kalamba tuleshe ili ashiri kalamba
Roger tukashita na vakombe tukashita ma binoculars.
Even next week we get some binoculars, but
three times Malanda. Media housing right now. Vakasonso said it will go up by 3, which means kayanda. Time is coming very soon. Viko tumanda kuzambia need yandarama ya raisa. Food 3 times the requirement. Come on. So that quite a very big.
Can I just ask? What Vakombe is talking about, obviously, it's going to be those details on the structures on how the whole mining will be moving forward. My question is, from your experience, such kind of negotiation, when you are creating those structures in terms of criteria, can it be where citizens can input into that? Is that possible? Or is that to be done secretly with the mining companies? Because that's kind of where we...
Yes, Vavimbe. Icho mfiro kuchita realize. Checho nalefu aira bakasare minister without portfolio. Because minister without portfolio, kuya chita harness ichipyu cha abantu. Kwa bama riots na ma protests, ya kuchita put pressure pali balama investors. Abali ama investors, bali abantu abatsa invest mu migodi. There are some of the worst and bad people in the global investment community. But what it may be, ngana bakoseleka pa chintu nchile chinefu baikatirire. So pakuba tumuye mubasume mufinye mwaka pia muchiteshani fila shupa. So yes, so you have to have a tough negotiator and you have to put pressure on them. And the pressure has to also take the political will of the people to say, we want an increase in production. For example, hold them accountable. They've borrowed a lot of money for reinvestment there, but we haven't seen any investments in those mines that can expand the production. So by UPND, Nima Fish Ego, so I'm mona investor under Lungwa ya Congolenda la Merwasa Mulomba, ka 3 million production. That's what has happened here. So the way you structure those agreements, you don't alter the structure, you don't alter the immediate current arrangement too much. But what you do is to push for new projections. And from those projections, you appropriate the benefit so that the current structure of the company is not ultimately changed, but from the increase of their production and the way they are doing well, you are getting a bigger stake than you were getting previously. So that is the whole idea of pushing for the increase in the production. That is feasible and that is possible. To require more equipment, which they already have money because those companies have borrowed humongous sums of money. Increase in number of people you are employing, and just increase the daily production. If you want to akasaka kakopa, and then you could target that muleta kotutatu. What are you going to do? It's simple implementation. You put the people, more people in, and you put in more equipment in those dungeons. You are going to get that.
Okay, number question. What leverage does the Zambian government have to ask for these companies to follow through on the monies that they borrowed? Is the Zambian government guaranteing the loans, or are we saying
answer that question this way, Balumbira?
Those loans are not guaranteed by the government of Zambia.
Hold on, because I want to go to the next one. What are 15 minutes? 10 minutes. Next value addition. Balumbira. Eyo balandira chitampeno kupepeka. Tutampe kupanga ama systems in fuego, ama suggestions. How do we follow up? If
Roger, you see, okay, let's say in an aya Congo in Dalama. In my own personal capacity, my own company, and I say to the bank, I am going to invest in a poultry project. The bank approves the money, but then I decide that I'm not going to invest in a poultry project. Okay. At the end of the day, the government only knows me. Like the bank only knows me. I am the one who went and borrowed. I have you have no obligation to pressure me to follow through on my project. So that's why I'm asking to say
one minute.
Let me ask you a question, very important. 1 minute. When a private company goes and borrows money, they stake it against their assets that they have invested. If their investment in Zambia, it means they have borrowed the money using Zambian assets and Zambian resources as the reason why they have borrowed the money. And if they have borrowed like that, because that's how private companies borrow, they borrow based on their revenues, their asset value, and their projected production. So they have literally borrowed using Zambian assets. We can help our government to even put more pressure on them now to use that borrowed money to invest.
Now,
they wanted to invest, but they've given an excuse. But they've given an excuse. The excuse they have given is that the policies in the mining sector are restricting them. So remove the bottlenecks and let the money go in.
I
disagree.
They are doing this, by the way. Take example, they are producing more than we are doing. Mama Sarah, did you have something to say, or you're just enjoying yourself? The people talking here.
Enjoying, but I just, as you are talking, something comes to my mind, and then it's out of topic, but it's something to do with our economy as well. So I'm looking at the emerald mines. What is the government take about that? The way they are run, you find the foreigners like Igunasi running the entire emerald mines. So I don't know what the government has for that, because I've seen a lot of corruption going through that, because I've grown in that area. And each time there is a Copper Belt minister, they tour that place and they are given the emeralds, Lusaka Tuama emeralds. That I've seen. I can even,
and it shuts them up, right?
Yes. So I don't know what
that is a good point you bring. Ababa nesunga wakakosa ile ashiriabo ile corruption wakakosa fefine ba lete ile. It will touch everything. It will touch everything, mining tulelandapo okay era tulanda pali kopa sana utwalandapo mandu wa taxation was a problem. I'm sure those same problems na abe na maximum miners ever facing mairo vaisa today Mr. Tax 20%, mairo 35, yo twakulaka na 50-50. That is where the problem is. So on ownership, HH has told us on ownership, mining it has to be owned by the Zambians. You have to have a stake. I do HH. So I'm sure you corruption ya kula pali gunas. Twali mushu afema kukitu. Twali mushu. Isentule ya kuli value addition. Yeah, niko tama topics ya video ya.
I wanted to say something in 20 seconds. I wanted to
20 seconds. I like
20
seconds. I like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
I like
very
20
quickly.
seconds. Yeah.
Issue of diamonds, I think Nani, I think the government the greatest problem we have is the signing of the long-term leases. I'm sure that is signing a lease na Gunanse ayama. So you can't just go back and say twachinja, because then you're violating the contract. And this speaks to what Vakasonso said. He said we can the government should use the assets that the investors have declared.
Okay. 20 seconds, yeah, Peter. 20 seconds, yeah, Peter.
It's a very important point.
The last one we're talking about.
The government to change contracts. Because when we start doing that, it becomes big brother.
It's a problem.
Don't want that.
They will change on you.
The only way they can entice the investors to change is offer them incentives. Let's not encourage them to break contracts. They can go back and offer an incentive.
I want you, if you are watching us live, Mrs. J, do you have any winner there? Let us know.
Yes, she does. She's posted it there. We have a winner.
Okay, post here. Let's see who has won a ticket. But the next one, the government wants you to take your minds to Cassava Bay, because that's where they want to take a lot of investments. Mrs. J, we are waiting for you. Who is the winner for the next ticket? 500 kwacha ticket to see Professor Patrick Lumumba. Winner is Lukachi Modesta Mulia Nsalu. Hey, Miss Lukachi. That is your bululu there, my sister. Lukachi, that is your bululu there from Zambezi. From Zambezi, somewhere. Anyway.
So what does she need to do?
She needs the Mrs. J will inbox her, and she has the tickets. Those two winners are going to
congratulations, Modesta.
Next week we are actually planning a 10,000 gift. Ooh. Anytime soon. If you have a business idea, come on radio, share your business idea, and we'll give you 10,000 kwacha. Just like that, 10,000. Anyway, you guys are going to build hotels, go for golf courses in Cassava Bay. You guys are going to build lodges in Cassava Bay there. Listen to what the minister has to say.
One of the things that we are certainly dreaming of is to revive the idea of the Northern Circuit, because most of the tourism today is just in Livingstone. 10 years ago, we were talking about reviving the Northern Circuit, precisely Cassava Bay, which you know very well yourself. In that plan, around that Mpulungu, Mbala, Ndole Bay, Cassava Bay area, was to recognize this Cassava Bay as something that is potentially a gold mine for conference tourism, because it sits right in the middle of Africa. If you have a Pan-Africa conference, a conference pulling together many African countries, there's no central location other than that. From East Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa. So that is a place that you can make to be very busy with conference tourism.
Right.
Every week something, 2-3 conferences taking place there. But again, it is a raw place. Rocks, forests, elephants, you need to do something to transform it, right? So that investors come and set up the hotels, lodges, conference facilities that you're talking about. What is the transformation that is required? You need an airport so that East Africans, West Africans, North Africans can fly in. That airport of the Kaunda days is too small.
Bakombe, are you ready to go and build a hotel in Cassava Bay?
I like the idea. It's really, it's great. And I see the administration now is thinking outside the box. I think these are the things that we should really look at. So I like the direction they're going. And it comes back to what you've been saying. Everything being centered in Lusaka, you know, or Livingstone. You know, we have so much potential. The 754,000 square feet of our land, much of it is just bush. We can utilize that. So I like the direction they're going, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
And you see, Roger, I'm glad I didn't speak very quickly. But beginning, I wanted to say, why are we talking about the mines here instead of tourism? I'm glad I kept quiet. you know how strong I am on tourism, because not to take a lot of time, he has used one phrase, Vavimbe Bakasonso. Did you catch that phrase? Conference tourism. You see? That's what makes Las Vegas what it is. People don't realize that.
And Orlando.
Conference.
And that
tourism.
Egyptian.
Dubai.
Yeah. So I like the point you make, Bakombe, when you say thinking out of the box. Now you need to think outside the box. Okay, the mine's good. Do what you have to do with the mines. So I like this. Conference tourism.
Conference tourism, yeah.
1 minute each, 30 seconds each. Who wants to go before we go?
In fact,
this has been good. I hope you are ready to invest in your country.
The Kenyans have actually done a very good job, but you see, their approach has been the role of government has been to make sure that they have infrastructure, like if you mentioned that airport,
yeah,
very good road network, communication, and so you look at places like Kisumu and what they're trying to do there. In fact, the Conference of African Cities is going to be held, I think, in Kisumu. So imagine if the Zambian government kind of had that same mindset to create this infrastructure around some of these tourist centers, so that investors can come in and invest in those areas. So if I told them agriculture, that's where our investment is going to be. If you have a conference tourism to Aramishi.
Airline, yes, we.
But Roger, yes, ka conference tourism bachlanda pubankama. The flip side of it is to think of it as creating these artificial global centers where an investor can come and interface with people from the regional and global economy and make money from that, not just sucking money out of Zambia. I recently was on vacation to Sun City in South Africa. That's a masterclass. And people from all over, there are local people there also, but the majority of the people who go there are people who come from other parts of the country, and we take US dollars there. And the investor is able to get a chunk of that money. It's not coming from the South Africa economy, it's coming from the global economy. So that is where I like that concept of picking a nice resort place and creating incentives for investments there. So what the minister was simply saying is there is going to be allocation for money in the budget for creating incentives for investment in places that can attract foreign players to come and play on the Zambian soil for the benefit of the Zambians.
Yeah. By the way, this is the drawing, Shani, which is there. There are some beautiful plans which are meant for Cassava Bay. Yeah, these are the plans, how they want to do it. Babimbe, last word, Babimbe.
I mean, this is a very good thing, and I think, as Kama said, diversification. That's what we've been crying for, diversifying the economy. This is brilliant idea, and creating such hubs where you can do proper tourism as well as conferencing tourism. That's very important. One thing that obviously we need to work with is the local people. They need to be involved in all these things. But it also comes down to the whole system again. We were talking about immigration. When you start moving a lot of people in, you need systems that are very good. So it's just the whole government needs to work to that goal. But I like the idea of that.
Yeah. Bakombe wanted to say something quickly. We
brilliant idea. I love it. And being in a tourist city like Orlando, I've seen it grow in the last 20 years. Before the convention centers, we only had Disney and Universal Studios. But when they brought in the 2 large convention centers, life has changed. So I like how they're thinking, and I'm sure they're also looking at the location. We are landlocked. So imagine in the region, if there's a conference or people in a neighboring country, they have a conference, but they want to just take people out. Location is everything. So just the creation of that center or city will move a lot of things. Road network, small businesses, hotels mushrooming, the transport sector. And this is why we need fiber optic cables. Comms are very important. Communication is key.
Communication is key.
Communication is key. Investors invest in a place where communication is good. You don't want to have a meeting on the internet.
Communication, among opportunities, but there's Mendo. If you are around, if you are food, ishi. This is your show.
And they should follow it up now with details.
The budget is coming. The budget is coming. Vision.
But when is the budget speech?
Well, again, in the same interview, it says because in the constitution, it's given when you are supposed to give the budget. But if you change government, they are given a leeway in the constitution, so it might not come in October because they are going to make adjustments. HH himself, he said, the budget we are changing it. More money is going to the rural areas. Ooh,
I don't think it's gonna happen soon because I mean the budget is just too soon, and I would suspect most of these things will come in the 8th National Development Plan, which I hope it's not just a document that they will put in the shelves because we've had these things quite a long. So I think we'll be following that.
Keep watching this show every Saturday. We start Katushi and we start 16 hours at that time. It's going to change soon. Keep watching. You don't know. You might win 10,000, my sister. If you might win 10,000, or the Nigerians would say, you might win. Last word, Miss Sarah, we go. You're on mute somehow. Okay, so we'll leave you alone. We can't hear you, Sisi. Okay.
Tozalaki kotambola tozalaki misato nagu toyebanaki maso ya mokili tokabwanaki mpona nini matongi elekaki biso mbeka tozalaki kotambola tozalaki misato nagu toyebanaki maso ya mokili tokabwanaki mpona nini matongi elekaki biso mbeka masu tozalaki kotambola tozalaki misato nagu toyebanaki maso ya mokili